Welcome, wonderful people from all around the world, to another episode of The Dissection. Today, we start off our episode with some bad news. The Vice President of Malawi and 9 other people have been reported dead. They were on a flight that was flying to a funeral yesterday in Malawi, and that flight went missing. And there was a search all through the night and even during the day. The flight was found, the plane was found crashed, and there were no survivors. The Vice President of Malawi is Salos Chilima, and he was 51 years old. He leaves behind a wife and 2 children. It's a really sad story, and it makes me think even about the response in and of itself. Does Africa have adequate emergency responses? Does Africa have all of the equipment to deal with these kind of things? But not only for VIPs like presidents and vice presidents, also for the floods. You remember the floods that happened in KZN, the hurricane that hit, was it a hurricane or a cyclone that hit Mozambique? There are a variety of places which have been struck by natural disasters and emergencies of various nature, where it seemed as if the African countries did not have an adequate institution or infrastructure or equipment or personnel to respond to that kind of a problem. So it's a very sad day, and we offer our condolences to all of the people of Malawi, to all of the people who may have worked with Vice President Chilima or known Vice President Chilima. He's somebody who used to also cultivate relationships across the continent of Africa. Very passionate African leader, and unfortunately we'll never get to see if he ascends to presidency and what he was going to do with it. It's just a reminder sometimes that your story ends at moments that you don't control. So always make sure that you are doing the best that you can where you are with what you have. There's always a bigger dream, but that may not be for you. It may be for someone else. In South African newspapers today, these were the stories that were leading. In the Sowetan, a story about a principal banning initiation for extra classes for grade 11s. A story around Cyril being exhorted rather, by leaders of Business Unity SA to get to work, to make sure everything gets to work. Another story in The Citizen around Zondo should stay out. Chief Justice Raymond Zondo should stay out of any coalition talks to maintain the separation of powers and the integrity and reputation of the Constitutional Court. This article speaking about how he should not descend in the arena. In other articles, in the Star, we have a headline around the GNU being a disguised ANC and DA coalition. And we've spoken about that a few times on this particular station and channel and YouTube. It's not a station, it's a YouTube show, right? And also sometimes you may see it on Twitter and or TikTok. Cape Times, Parley unmoved by MK party threats. And this speaks to the issue of Parliament actually saying that they don't actually care what MK is trying to do. They've cancelled accommodation, they've cancelled flights for MK, and they are going to continue with the business of Parliament on Friday. So these were some of the leading stories. Another story, which is just like, I think, a sideshow, is whether or not Jabulani Khumalo will go to Parliament. If you recall, Jabulani Khumalo issued a statement yesterday telling MK members to go to Parliament and saying that he will be there. There's a letter that was being circulated that actually seems to have come from Parliament telling him that he has been expelled from his party, therefore he should not come to Parliament. We'll see what happens in that respect, but I think it's a sideshow at this particular occasion. So now to the big thing that I want to talk about today, and that big thing is the dispute between the African Union and Fitch, the rating agency. So Fitch, which rates various countries and gives them credit ratings which can affect their international access to funding, issued a statement last week where it said that the election outcome in South Africa raises new risks for its credit profile. And it said in that statement that they are maintaining South Africa's rating at BB- with a stable outlook, right? But there's a risk to the outlook for South Africa based on who the ANC makes a coalition with. They then said that the ANC would be better served by making a coalition with the Democratic Alliance, either a hard coalition or a soft coalition. We've discussed before how confidence and supply would work. And if you haven't watched yesterday's episode, you can go and watch that. But then they also say that, what do they say here? I have to find the paragraph. They say that the MK and EFF are populist parties and campaigned on radical agendas with many shared elements. These included wild-scale land expropriation without compensation, nationalization of key parts of the economy, including mines, the central bank, large banks and insurers, halting fiscal consolidation, and aggressively increasing social grants. Reaching agreement with the MK or EFF would require significant concessions by at least one of the parties involved, as the ANC's stance differs sharply on these policies. We believe an agenda advanced by a government backed by the MK or EFF would be less radical than their campaign platforms suggest. Moreover, a number of policies proposed by the two parties would require constitutional changes that would be unlikely to pass Parliament in our view, given the outcome of the election. Nonetheless, even if the most radical policies do not come to pass, we believe that South Africa's debt trajectory would face additional risks if the ANC enters into agreements that rely on support from the MK or the EFF. This outcome could also pose additional challenges to macroeconomic stability. For example, if it led to broad weakening of investor confidence or eroded governance. So what they're saying here is, as a rating agency, that they don't think that the ANC should enter into any form of arrangement with the MK party and or the EFF. Then what happened is that the African Peer Review Mechanism, which is an instrument of the African Union, issued a statement around what Fitch, the rating agency, had said, right? The African Peer Review Mechanism undertakes routine analysis of rating actions and commentaries assigned by international credit rating agencies to African Union member states. This is in line with the African Union Assembly Heads of State and Government decision and Article 6G of the African Peer Review Mechanism, which mandates the African Peer Review Mechanism to support African countries on credit ratings. Accordingly, the African Peer Review Mechanism notes with concern the commentary by Fitch Ratings issued on the 4th of June, in which the rating agency states that, from its various permutations, it believes that a coalition between the Democratic Alliance and the African National Congress would likely result in policy continuity, the least significant changes to credit metrics over the medium term, and enhanced fiscal tightening. According to Fitch Ratings, South Africa's debt trajectory would face additional risks if the former ruling party, ANC, enters into agreements that rely on support from Umkhonto weSizwe economic freedom fighters, which Fitch characterizes as populist parties with radical agendas that pose challenges to macroeconomic stability, leading to a broad weakening of investor confidence and eroded governance. Given the influence that Fitch Ratings command in the global financial markets, the African Peer Review Mechanism views the comments made by Fitch Ratings as politically motivated and tantamount to political interference in the internal political affairs of an African Union member state, the Republic of South Africa. This is especially important considering that the commentary has been issued amidst ongoing negotiations by political parties to form a coalition government or government of national unity following the elections in South Africa, which have produced no outright winner. As a global financial institution, Fitch Ratings should conduct itself as an independent and non-political institution. The African Peer Review Mechanism views this comment by Fitch as premature and unsubstantiated. Fitch should have waited for the outcomes of the ongoing negotiations by political parties and the resulting policy choices to make conclusions that are based on facts, and informed analysis. The end. Wow. What a very stern message from the African peer review mechanism and the African Union. They are saying that Fitch has influence and command in the global markets. And for them to make these statements at this stage is premature. And not only that, it is tantamount to political interference. Wow. That is very, very strong language from the African Union. And let's reflect on whether or not it's fair or unfair for them to say this. Number one, the markets have a lot of control, and international markets have a lot of control on the value of a currency. So if a well-established and reputable entity such as Fitch starts to comment to various global platforms that, hey, this coalition is good, this coalition is bad, the analysts, the traders, the bankers, all of those people will rely on that advice. And if any deal is made which is not consistent with what that particular rating agency says, that could actually put the currency in jeopardy. It could. It could. So I think that it's fair for the African Union to actually say what you are doing is out of line. You need to wait. You need to allow this sovereign nation to deal with its internal affairs and to come up with a deal that works for them. At the point at which rating agencies, markets, chief investment officers are using their influence in the financial market to try to intimidate the ruling party or the former ruling or maybe next ruling party, the ANC, into one particular position, that is actually an abuse of power. Let's allow the politicians who've been given a mandate to make the deals that they need to make. Of course, the markets do matter and the currency matters. But what has happened is that the people have voted, and that vote has given expression to various percentages. Even the parties that you don't necessarily like. Maybe you don't like Umkhonto weSizwe. Maybe you don't like EFF. Maybe you don't like Patriotic Alliance. Maybe you don't like the Democratic Alliance. All of these parties have been given a mandate. The mandate is not equivalent, right? Some are given 40, some are given 20, some are given 15, some are given 9. All of them have been tasked by the electorate to work it out amongst themselves. And as a result of that, to come up with a plan that works. It's wrong for rating agencies to try to interfere with that process, I think. I think that I agree with the African Union when they say this. And I seldom agree with the African Union because I think that they're a bunch of lazy old men who don't do enough for the continent. But in this respect, I think that I agree with the statement that was issued. Final story that I'm going to cover today in brief is that there is going to likely be an increase in the price of goods that are purchased from Shein and Temu. So if you've been buying from these, what do they call them? E-commerce platforms, Shein and Temu. What has happened is that SARS has actually said, listen, we actually have realized people are using a loophole in the way that they're bringing small packages into South Africa. And as a result of that, they've been paying only 20% tax on the value of the goods and not paying VAT, which is value added tax, and or the usual tax that they would pay, which is 45%. So what they're going to actually start doing now is making sure that all goods that are coming in from Shein and Temu are paying 45% as well as 15%. And that's starting on the 1st of July. So from the 1st of July, you could see a steep increase as you are trying to empty your basket. I think that's what people say, empty my basket on Shein or Temu. So you may find that those prices will go up. So I don't know what you think about that. I don't know if you've been shopping on Shein or Temu. Part of the reason why this is happening is to try to protect the local retail industry, because as e-commerce platforms become bigger, and remember, Amazon has also come into South Africa, the companies like the Foschini Group are struggling to keep up, and some of them have had to close shops. I think the Foschini Group closed 30 shops in the last year. So they're struggling because people are buying clothes on platforms such as Shein and Temu, and they're not able to keep up with what is typically known as fast fashion. So whether or not this will stop fully the fast fashion phase, or not phase, fad, fast fashion fad, remains to be seen. But I think that there are other dynamics that will perhaps keep people on these platforms, because they move quicker with fashion trends on Temu and stuff, because they're able to copy, to quickly manufacture those things in China and deliver them in a way that sometimes these traditional retail outlets are not able to. But it's a story that has been happening in the world of commerce. They're going to make sure that Shein and Temu pay the 45% plus 15% VAT. So that brings us to the end of this dissection. I hope you enjoyed it. If you haven't subscribed yet, please consider giving us a subscription. 89% of the viewers of these episodes have not yet subscribed. So please give us that subscription so that we grow the platform and let YouTube know that you enjoy these kind of analysis and discussions on whatever platform you're watching on. But this should be a YouTube platform. So on YouTube, please make sure that you are subscribed. Till the next one. Let's have a conversation, though. I'm going to be in the comments trying to see what you guys think. And I've seen so many people posting thoughtful comments, which I really, really appreciate.